So yeah, we were already kind of, you know, shaky going into WWE, and he had went, and when we were given this assignment of being the Dicks and being Chippendales, he did that whole thing with going and finding this guy Yanni to go dance with him. And I just like I said, it was very strange to me that he wanted to go and dance with this guy from, 8 o'clock at night until the wee hours of the morning, the day before we had to go on tour. And when he showed me a videotape of them dancing, and he was like, I'm going to get feedback from the writers and the guys and see what they think. And I was like, Chad, whatever you do, don't let anyone see that tape. And I was like, please put it away. If you just do it for yourself, if anything, I said, because they will crush you if they see that. Just knowing the boys, just knowing that it's a crazy, crazy business. And he did not heed the warnings. And sure enough, we're over on tour. I forget what country we were in, but we're on tour. And sure enough, we're already being pranked, hazed, whatever, which is totally cool because I expect that. You're on tour, you're a new guy, shit's going to happen. I roll with it. It's all good. I mean, I've played lots of sports in my life where I was a new guy or been part of things where I'm a new guy. There's pranks. It is what it is. No big deal. But I remember after one of the matches, all of a sudden I saw a group of the guys all huddled together looking, and I was like, what are they looking at? And sure enough, they're looking at the camcorder, and they're seeing him dancing. And it went from one guy to the next bigger guy to the next bigger guy, it went from Joey Mercury to like Randy Orton to like JBL to the Undertaker. They were passing it around. Then all of a sudden, and when it got to the Undertaker, it was just, the Undertaker was just like, looked at it. And I remember, I'll never forget. I remember he looked at it. He just stared at it. Then he just went, and I just thought to myself, holy shit, that's not good. That's not good. And sure enough, that night is when I got a call. Hey, Tank, come on down to the catering room, because we're at the hotel, private catering room. And I walk into the catering room, and Chad's already there. He'd already been drinking, and it was, it was a round table, and it was all like, some of the big names up there. It was like the JBL and Chris Benoit, and Orlando was up there at the time, and Animal was there, and of course the Undertaker was there, and there's a bunch of guys there, and there was only one seat open right next to Undertaker, and I knew what the deal was. I was like, I walk in, and they all look at me and they said, Tank, welcome to Wrestler's Court. And I was like, motherfucker, shit. I was like, I've only been here, I could almost count the hours that I've been up on the main roster, and I'm already in Wrestler's Court. And I'm like, shit. I was like, how this happen? Because I'm sure you've heard the stories, and it's the last place you want to be.
Absolutely.
And there was one seat next to Undertaker, so I walked in, and I tried to play it real cool, and I was like, you mind if I sit here? And he's like, no, go ahead. I said, mind if I have a beer? No, go ahead. Because I wasn't really, I'm not really a drinker, but I knew if I didn't ask for one, they were going to start feeding them to me real quick and continuous. So I was like, if I play along and I ask for a beer, it'll help. So sat down, and the first thing they said was, so Tank, if your tag partner wants to go and learn how to dance to become a better dancer for your guy's gimmick, why wouldn't you want to do that? And I thought to myself, holy shit, I am totally buried right now. I am thrown under the bus, buried. I'm screwed. And I just sat there and I said, well, how am I going to dig myself out of this? And I said, well, fuck it. I'm just going to be honest. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I felt like it was gay to me. And that felt uncomfortable. And there was about 3 seconds of silence. And that 3 seconds felt like 3 minutes. And it went, it just went like this. And they said, "You're goddamn right, Chad, admit you're gay." And they just, it was like a pack of wild dogs. Just all of a sudden, they all started yelling at him, woof, 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 attacking him. And I thought, first I thought like, thank God, this heat's off me. Oh my God. And they all went on him, and then I kind of felt bad for him, but at the same time, I was like, he brought it on himself, because I told him not to show that to anyone. And he's like, "I'm not gay. I swear I'm not gay." And they were on him till eventually he broke down and cried. He broke down and cried, and he's like, "I swear I'm not gay. I'm not gay." And blah, 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 blah. And then, and they're like, "What are you crying? You can't cry. There's no crying in wrestling." It's like that whole thing. And they're like, all right, calm down. Do some jumping jacks. So they had him doing jumping jacks and squats and squat thrusts while he's crying. And he's like sitting there crying, doing a workout. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. And so, that goes on for a little bit, and they're busting his chops. And I remember Orlando Jordan saying, "Chad, if anyone knows gay, I know gay, and you're gay as hell." And he was just so upset. And Chad is very, very, very metrosexual. Does he come off as possibly gay or a little gay or bisexual? Yes. Does it matter? Who cares? I don't care. Who cares? Right? It's the 2000 whatevers. And it is what it is. But they really got on him hardcore. It was some good bullying going on, but it is what it is. But eventually it turned to, all right, well, let me ask you, Tank. We hear obviously that you guys don't get along very well. Why is that? I was like, look, it's just something that, we don't always click well. And it's frustrating sometimes when you're not getting along with your tag partner and you're not on the same page. He goes, and they're like, well, how come you guys haven't fought yet? I was like, and I think because they did hear that I did pull the car over on the middle of one of our drives and tried to pull him out of the car because I was so pissed off at him, tried to, fight him, which I shouldn't have, but it is what it is. I was very frustrated that's when he went and, was pitching things to the creative without, and Stephanie without telling me. So I'll never forget that, though. I was with Boogeyman and Bobby Lashley and Jillian Hall and a couple other people. We were in the minivan, and I was just so heated. And that's not like me either, but I had to be really heated to get to that point. But I guess the guys knew about it, and they said, "Well, how come you guys haven't fought yet?" I was like, "Well, it just hasn't. I guess it just hasn't come to that. I'm trying to hold it together and trying to keep our tag team together because that's we're just trying to be the best we can, and it's frustrating, but we're trying." He's like, "Yeah, but you're not answering the question. How come you haven't fought?" And then Chad just chimes in. I don't know why. He finally had the heat off of him. And he goes, "I'll tell you why. Because my mom told me to be a bigger man and walk away from a fight." And right there, and then I remember Bradshaw had like a napkin, and he throws it up in the air like it's a flag, like like there's a penalty on the play. And he goes, "You can't bring your mom into this. Look at you. Now you're talking about your mom, bringing your mom in this. You really are a sissy, faggy, gay boy," and like that kind of stuff, like just totally like laying into him again and calling him a mama's boy and all this other stuff, and pretty rough. And he should have just stayed quiet and kept his mouth shut, but he did that. And then they're like, "Well, Chad, you know what? We know Tank calls the shots, but don't you think you should be calling equal shots on this?" And you should stand up to Tank right now. Tank, you should stand up. Tell Tank that you're going to have an equal say in this, and you're gonna be calling the shots too. And so now they're riling him up, and he's had some drinks in him. He's not not thinking clearly. Even when he's sober, he's not always thinking clearly, in my opinion. But I still love the guy. But anyway, so they get him to the point where they're like, "Come on, Chad, stand up and tell him." And I'm sitting in a chair, and he's like standing over me like this, and he's saying, Tank, I'm telling you right now, I'm an equal part of this team, and I'm going to be calling the shots too. And there's nothing you could do about it. And like they're like, yeah, that's right, Chad. They're egging him on. They're like, yeah, Chad, give it to him. And I'm like, yeah, Chad, come on, hit him. You could do it. Hit him. Come on, lay him out. You know you want to. And like they're like, you won't do it. And they're just getting at him. And so finally, they're like, come on, fight. And so Chad's like, Chad, I know Chad didn't want to do it. And he's like wheeling back like this. And he's got his back to the boys. So the boys can't like really totally see him. They're kind of catching almost a side back view of him. And he's like this. And I see him like this. And I see him like basically say, just go with me. Like work with this. And he winks. And I remember JBL sees him and he's like, he sees him wink and like mouthing something to me. He's like, are you trying to plan a fake fight? Chad, are you really trying to work the boys? That's what we do for a living. You can't work the boys. You can't plan a fake fight. You can't. And like, so they're all like, now they're all just getting on about that. And I'm like, holy shit. So at this point, it's been, a couple of hours of craziness going on. And so I'm like, finally like, all right, I'm going to go to the bathroom. If you guys don't mind. Of course, I have to ask permission like I'm back in third grade because that's how it is. And I'm like, yeah, no problem. So I go to the bathroom. I'm doing my business. As I'm finishing up, Chad busts in the door. And he's like, Tank, you got to help me. Please, you got to help me. Please. I'm like, Chad, I don't know what to tell you. You dug yourself a hole. I told you don't show that video to anyone. And now you got us both in heat. We're both here trying to battle this out just to get out of here. I said, Chad, just keep your mouth shut. Just lay low, bro. And I was like, but you're going to have to dig yourself out. So I walk out of the bathroom. And as I'm walking out of the bathroom, all the guys are walking in, almost all of them anyway. And as I'm walking out and I'm right by the elevator, I'm like, okay, I'll wait here. And I'm hoping because the elevator's right there. It's late enough. I'm like, hopefully they'll be like, all right, we're done. We're going back to bed. That's a night. So I'm waiting there, and then Chad comes busting out, and he once again he comes up to me. He's like, Tank, please. And at this point, and I shit you not, he got on his hands and knees and he looked up at me and he said, please let me hit you one time. And I said, Chad, you have got to be out of your damn mind if you think I'm going to let you hit me and me not hit you back. I said, because if I let you hit me, now all of a sudden I'm the bitch boy. I'm the big puss. And I'm not going to take that. It's like, I was like, you're going to have to figure out another way. He's like, please. And as he's continuing to beg me, I'm like, where are these guys? How long are they going to be in the bathroom? What are they doing in there? And sure enough, as I'm sure you've heard the story many times or a couple times, sure enough, the Undertaker tells it like this. I remember he said, yeah, we were coming out of the bathroom and go to open the door and little bastard locked us in. And they lost their shit. They thought it was the best thing ever. They thought it was absolutely hysterical. So this little motherfucker went from being so buried to being over. He was so over. They were loving him because he got one over on him. In the end, he got one over on him. If he had just left it right there, boom, it would have been probably end of a good night. Or they probably would have spun it and been pissed at him for something else anyway, whatever. But at that moment, he was over. And the unfortunate thing is that he didn't lock them all in there. He didn't lock Orlando Jordan in there. And Orlando Jordan went to go to the bathroom and he opened it. He noticed it was locked, so he just unlocked it. And next thing you know, as he walks in, everybody walks out. And when they walked out, they saw him down the ground begging me. And so he went from down low to over to just buried once again. And then that's when I don't know how to respond. That's when they got over. That's when they really got on him. And yeah. So, but they're like, okay, this is pathetic. It's the end of the night. So we're all on the elevator. Chad's now like crying inconsolably while we're on the elevator. And while we're on the elevator, they're like elbowing him, and he's like a pinball getting knocked around in there by the guys. And I felt so bad for him that when it came to his floor, I actually got off on his floor and I went back to his room because I was really concerned about his emotional well-being at that point, because I really felt like he just is so out of it that I was scared that for him to be alone. I just didn't want, I wanted him to have someone there to at least cry to, even though I was pissed at him and annoyed that whole thing happened. Overall, I still didn't want anything bad happening to him or him being by himself in that moment, because I saw how distraught he was. So I try to be like, look, dude, and I use that as a moment to be like, look, man, I know you are in a bad place right now, but use this as a learning moment so you can learn from this and know that we got to build together. We got to be strong together as a team, and we got to kind of get through this shit, because it's us against them, really, because we're the new guys. We're here taking segments away from these guys, or not those guys in particular, but like we're there. We could potentially take someone's, TV spot, and people in the business are very worried about, their positions sometimes. So, so basically when it came down to it, I was just trying to be there for him. And the next day he was sick as a dog. They didn't let him ride on the same bus as us. They made him take a taxi to the next venue. And while he's in that taxi, he puked all over it. And the taxi driver was all pissed off. And the boys, whoever paid for the taxi, had to pay extra. So now he was even in more heat because he freaking made him pay more for the taxi. So it was a whole thing. And then sure enough, that next day that we had to work, when you looked on the card in the back in the locker room and it said who was working who, it said, I think we were in Mexico City, and I don't know if we were working Spanky in London or the Mexicals or who we were working, but it said whoever we were working versus not the dicks, it was versus a dick and a pussy. And yeah. So when we went out there and we were working, we were tagging, and every time I'd be working, I'd wrestle, I'd tag out. And as soon as Chad would go in, over the whole PA system, you would hear a baby crying. So you would actually hear the baby crying while he was working. And then I'd tag in and the crying would cut off. And then I'd tag out, baby would start crying. And I knew the boys in the back were having a real riot with that. So that had to be like Undertaker or one of the top guys' idea, because only a couple guys have that kind of pull to say, this is what you're doing. So, it was a house show. It wasn't televised. So, but that's what was going on. I remember looking out the corner of my eye. I remember Ricky Steamboat was our agent for that match. And I just remember watching him just rolling, laughing. He was just cracking up. And I remember the other guys on the other side were cracking up, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I was just like, this isn't the last of it. And sure enough, it wasn't, because that very night was the grand finale. Which, if you want me to tell you, I could tell you that real quick.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I'm like monopolizing all the time here. Okay, so real quick, that night I was really hoping that I was just going to be able to go to sleep, and we had a flight the next morning, and I would just be able to get on the plane and push that away. But I got a call from Chris Benoit about 20 minutes after I had gone to bed. He's like, your boy's at it again. I'm like, what the hell's going on? He's like, yeah, I'll be up in a minute. I'm going to come get you. We're going to go down to the catering. I'm like, okay. So now we're in this really nice hotel in Mexico City. And we come, and it's a huge catering hall room. And now it's just not a few of the big boys there. It's like all the wrestlers, all the crew, the doctor was there, like everybody was there, everybody. And as I'm walking in, there's all these circular tables and everyone's eating and drinking. And there's like money, like piles of money on all the tables. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? And so once again, one seat at the main table for yours truly and next to Undertaker. And I'm like, here we go again. And so once again, I said, do you mind if I sit here? No, go ahead. All right. Mind if I have a beer? Here you go. All right. Thank you. They get into the whole thing again with Chad, and now they're just trying to straight up get him to fight me. And what I come to find out is all these piles of money are on the table around the whole catering place because everyone's taking bets. Are they going to fight? How long will the fight last? Who's going to win? You know, will someone get knocked out? Well, like, you know, all these bets going on, right? So I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, are you kidding me right now that this whole thing's going on? So sure enough, I'm sitting there, and now I'm like, okay, I'm not going to put this over at all. I'm just going to relax, have a beer, and Chad can just run his mouth if he's gone. He's already drunk by this time. And so I'm having a beer. I'm sitting, leaning back in my chair, and Chad's over me again doing this whole pointing his fingers. And I'm like, all right, Chad, sit down. I'm not going to fight you. Stop. It's just, why are you doing this? We talked about this. At this point, I'm like, just basically saying, don't put them over. Don't put them over. You're giving them what they want. Just relax. I'm like, come on, man. I was like, just relax. Have a beer, relax. That was it. He's like, no, Tank, you listen to me. And now I'm like, you got to be kidding me, Chad. Come on. So I'm sitting there and I'm literally leaning back and it was Taker says something to me. And as I look at Taker, Chad just hits me square hits me in the jaw. I'm leaning back on two legs of a chair, just leaning back. And so I do a back roll out of the chair. Next thing I know, you know, beer's flying out of my hand. Next thing I know, I'm in a front face lock. And I'm like, I go, damn it, Chad. I said, now I got to hit you. And so now it's like, so I get up, I get out of the front face lock, and I just give him a quick, I mean, I didn't even give him a closed fist. I just gave him a quick bam, smacked him good upside the face. I said, now knock it off, as I'm not going to lose my job because of you. I'm not going to give into this. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to fight you. All right. I said, knock it off. And so because I slapped him like a bitch, everybody lost their shit and thought it was hilarious because they're like, Chad, you cheap shot and motherfucker. You went and you hit Tank off the back of his chair, and then he gets right back up and slaps you like the bitch you are, basically saying that, right? And they're all laughing. And I remember JBL's on the other side of The Undertaker, and he's like, oh, Tank, oh, man, I got to toast you on that one, man. And I'm like, holy shit, just let this stop, please. And I'm like, hey, look, I'm like, Chad knocked the beer out of my hand. I'm sorry. And Taker goes, here, take my beer. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, okay, thank you, Mr. Taker. So I take the beer, and as I'm going to toast JBL, I'm going to toast him, and out of the corner of my eye, I see Chad wheeling back again, like he's about to sucker punch me again. And so I'm like, whoa. I'm like, whoa. And he's like, and I look at him, everyone's like, just, it's like almost quiet right now because everyone's like, what the heck? And I was like, were you about to snake me? I was like, were you about to sucker punch me again? And he goes, psych. I was like, did he really just say psych? And everyone's like, psych, no bullshit. You were about to sneak him again. You were about to sneak him. And I was like, oh my God, just let this go away. So I was like, I just shook my head. I was like, okay, I caught him. It ain't going to happen. I go lean over. I go and toast JBL. As I'm toasting JBL, wham! He gets me again. I stumble back a few steps. And I was like, all right, put down the beer. I was like, now I'm going to fucking kick your ass. And he just all of a sudden went into the best Ric Flair beg off. No. We're even. We're good. And I'm like, no, we're not good. And so I just like, now I'm just pissed. And I'm fucking seeing red. So I just bop. And I hit him 3 times. First shot was like, hit him right in the eye. Second shot, I think I fractured his nose. And then the third shot, I came in and I put his teeth through his bottom lip. and actually cut my finger wide open to the bone, and tore a tendon. And he was, and I just like, I bop bop bop, and he was down on the ground snoring, and I jumped down to, like, I was like, all of a sudden it's like I'm just kind of wailing him, but luckily the guys pulled me back, and he was already a bloody mess. He had a white shirt on. I just remember just blood everywhere because he was already mouth and nose just bleeding. And I feel bad that happened at this point in my life, and I wish I regret doing that, but in that moment, I'm defending myself and I'm saying, I'm just over this. This is you're going to learn a lesson one way or another. So they basically picked him up off the ground, and it was like I think it was like Jamie Noble and Matt Hardy. Like, they're like, get this guy out of here, bring him back to his room, and they like drug him back off to his room, and then they're like, Tank. They all circled around me and are like, Tank, you're one of the boys. We love you. You're all good with us. But your partner, he's an asshole. And I was like, well, that probably doesn't bode well for me either, because you live and die sometimes by your tag team partner. So sure enough, I'm just like, I'm like, all right, well, thanks, guys. And I look at my hand, it's busted wide open. And the doctor luckily was there, Dr. Rios. And he's like, yeah, I figured something like this would happen. So he's like, all right, guys, let me take a look at this, move out. And so they're still crowded around me. He looks at it, he's like, oh, yeah, you busted it open, you tore your ligament. He's like, hey, who wants to watch me sew together a ligament? And so they're like, oh, yeah, let's watch this. So like he performed hand surgery right there in front of the guys. He takes out like Novocaine, he jams it in my hand, and next thing you know, he flushes it out. And next thing you know, he's stitching it back up, and I'm like, there's my hand. And 2 weeks later, it was still infected. I almost lost my finger because of that, because teeth had a lot of bacteria in them. And so, yeah, I got a good infection from that. I almost lost my finger, but yeah, so not long after that, I think we went to Japan, and then after that, not too long after that, we got let go. And because of, you can't be fighting. We're a publicly traded company, and you can't be fighting, and blah 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 blah. And yeah, it is what it is. It's Johnny Ace talking Johnny Ace words, and you wishing you the best in your future endeavors. Blah blah blah.
Did he fire you over the phone or in person?
Oh no, it was a three-way call. Chad was on wherever he was, and then I was on. It was a conference call, and he's like, "Oh, the gimmick's not exactly taking off the way it should," and nothing I hadn't already been worried about from the start, like I had told you. And then he's like, and you guys, you really can't be fighting each other. We're a publicly traded company or in another country. It just doesn't look good, but just gotta let you go for now. But this door, this business, it's a revolving door. You come and you go. Maybe we forget about you guys. Let the people forget about the gimmick and who you were, and then you guys eventually you make your way back and you do something different. And, it's whatever. How true that was, I don't know. Johnny Ace. I don't think Johnny Ace truly ever liked me anyway.